really nice to be out and about. We're not out very much at all, we're working from home mostly. It's a really hard act to follow the presentation just now, so I hope you find what we've shared useful. It's very much just a reminder about who we are and what we do and how we're relevant to you. We have a presentation which is yet to be uploaded on our website. It will be very shortly. It's a recorded presentation, so it's got Emma and our voiceover, so you can use it in your agencies going forward. And at the end, if you've got any questions, we'll be really happy to answer. We're also here very much to promote our new resources. We've got lots of new resources about safeguarding, particularly as we published 6 safeguarding adult reviews last year. And from those reviews, we found quite a lot of learning that was needed in the multi-agency partnership, things around professional curiosity, risk assessment, mental capacity, all the usuals. So we produced podcasts, learning briefings, just different ways in which people can listen or look at information very quickly to know what's needing to improve across West Sussex. So, okay, we'll have a go at doing this. I'm sorry if you already know this, some of you may be very familiar, but just as a recap, the Safeguarding Adults Board has 3 statutory. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but you can see that the purpose is our responsibility safeguarding in West Sussex. It's a strategic partnership. We have 3 statutory partners: the police, the Integrated Care Partnership Care Board, I think they're called now instead of the CCG, and the local authority, who's the lead agency. And they meet 4 times a year. There's subgroups that work for the board as well, that does the main business during the year. And it looks at safeguarding activity in West Sussex, data, learning, providers. So we've got a quality assurance safeguarding information group, which meets every month. Rosemary may have told you about that, and that looks at emerging risk and issues in care providers where the multi-agency forum could get involved to support. So that's a little bit of an introduction. And shall we move on? I've probably gone off piece, but we have 3 statutory responsibilities. So one is to have a strategic plan. That's a 3-year plan. We've just published our new 3-year plan. The second is to produce an annual report. Our annual report has just been to scrutiny at the Health and Wellbeing Board. It reports on all of our activity, what we've been able to achieve, what we've been able to learn, and how we work together with the multi-agency partnership to minimise and address safeguarding risks. And the third, as I mentioned, safeguarding adult reviews is a statutory requirement. So if somebody dies in abuse or neglect is indicated, then we have a statutory responsibility to commission an independent reviewer to look at multi-agency learning to minimise future risk. And as I mentioned, we had 6, which is a lot. So we do work very closely with East Sussex and Brighton Hove SABs. They each had around 2. We've already got another 3 this year. So we are quite busy with our reviews. So I mentioned about our subgroups. You can see the Safeguarding Adults Board, it meets 4 times a year. Our chair subgroup meets 2 weeks before to plan for that meeting. And then we've got 5 subgroups that do the main business of the board. And we're really lucky. We have such a variety of people across the partnership who come to those meetings and contribute. And Rosemary, you come as well, don't you, to our learning and policy subgroup, which is great. So we've had a meeting. We have a meeting every year to decide on what the priorities are for each year. And we decide that based on the data. So what the data is telling us, what the main issues are, what our SARS is telling us, what our partners are telling us. So this year, our 3 main priorities are complex cases. So we have a MARM subgroup, which is around people who tend to not engage, self-neglect, end up with a safeguarding adult review. And we know the complexity around risk assessing those cases is quite complex. So we're going to do some audit work and various other work to look at complex cases and how we can improve and support people to practice better together. The second is older people. You'll be happy to know many of you probably work with older adults. So we recognise that nationally, the majority of people who require safeguarding are older adults, so it's 65 plus. The main types of abuse are financial neglect, self-neglect, and physical abuse. So it's our biggest cohort of work, and we want to really have a deep dive on the activity of safeguarding with this majority group. And the third is around communications and promotions of community engagement. So it's really about the messaging about safeguarding. So we know the public are very aware about child protection. They're less aware about vulnerable adults and abuse. And so over COVID as well, we saw a real hike in the interest of the public in others, in community spirit, in knowing neighbours, and we know that a lot of different types of crime and safeguarding became apparent. So a lot of financial abuse scams was a big issue. And actually the Health and Wellbeing Board, which only met last week, they were really interested in the cost of living crisis and the impact on safeguarding. They want us to specifically look at if we're going to see a rise in financial abuse because people are struggling financially and are more vulnerable. So this slide is about safeguarding adult reviews. I'm not sure how familiar you are. Our ambition is in children's services, when a child dies, everyone knows about that child. Everyone knows that the review is happening. Everyone's waiting for the report and everyone wants to know what's in it. We don't have that similar reaction in adults. So our reviews, we publish, we promote, we annoy people as much as we can to say, please care, please read this report, please know what happened to this person. But we're very much about trying to hook into the hearts and minds of all of the professionals working in the sector to know about these adults who died where abuse or neglect were indicated. So the criteria is that somebody has died and abuse or neglect is known or suspected, or that they've experienced serious abuse or neglect which has resulted in permanent harm, reduced capacity or quality of life, or the individual would have likely to have died if an intervention wasn't provided, and there was a concern that partner agencies, that's any partner agency, could have worked more proactively to protect the person. And below we've got the objectives of SARS, which is really around, it's not about blame, it's understanding what happened and what lessons can be learned and what can be improved on a strategic level, but also in practice. And looking at how safeguarding practices were used or not used and how they could be improved on, looking at good practice as well, what were the key things that were actually really good about the case. A really big thing is about interagency working. So one of our results from SARS is often that people weren't sharing information and intelligence, they weren't communicating well or meeting to understand the level of risk that was escalating. And how services can improve and agencies can relook at how they can minimise future risks. So that's the point of it. We do have families who want more. They might want a justice process, but our SARS always happen after any police investigation, after any safeguarding inquiry. It's not a re-investigation, and families do find that quite hard if they haven't got the result that they wanted from a previous process. So working with families, making safeguarding personal, keeping them understanding and repeating information is really important for us to make sure they continuously understand what we're going to actually achieve from a review. So really important that anyone and everyone refers to SAR in West Sussex. It's not a standard nationally, but in West Sussex the public can refer as well. So any member of staff or person, if they're concerned, can make a referral to us. We've got a learning briefing, we've got a protocol. Of course, we've got a protocol. It's a Pan Sussex one with Eastern and Brighton and Hove. We have quite a few Pan Sussex protocols, and the reason for that is many of our agencies are Sussex wide. So it's really, really annoying to the police or to health or to CCAM or mental health, SPFT, if we've all got different protocols and procedures. So that's why we try to marry together where we can. So we have a protocol, we've got a little it's like a 2-page learning briefing on what a SAR is and how to refer. And obviously we've got a referral form, but if in doubt, we always say, please check it out, give us a call. We've got an email address as well if you've got a concern. I say this because quite often referrals come in after quite a long time after the person's died, that somebody notices and thinks this might be a SAR. So particularly for families, that can be quite frustrating as well, that the time delay in terms of closure, particularly if the person has died. So we do say to everyone, please just give us a call if you're thinking something might need to be referred. So here we've got a list of policies and protocols that we just wanted to flag with you. We've got so many resources on our website that should be really helpful. We'd like the feedback. We've got learning briefings, as I said, and podcasts as well. But this is what we work to in safeguarding. And recently, the local authorities, East Brighton Hove and West Sussex, all confirmed with the boards that actually those key policies and procedures for safeguarding are owned by the local authority. And the reason for that is because they're the lead agency. They hold all the risk, they're accountable, they will be in court. If they're challenged, they will deal with the complaints. Although it's a multi-agency partnership, our boards, it is the local authority who leads and therefore is responsible for our protocols. Some of them are multi-agency because we very much collaborate with the whole of the board to make sure that each of the 3 boards are signed up to it and agree to it, and want, you know, if they want to tweak it, they are signed in collaboration. So these just more resources, again, third time I'm mentioning learning briefings and podcasts. So podcasts have been really popular actually because they're only a few minutes long and people can put it on in the car when they're driving or making a cup of tea. And it's, I think everyone, particularly working at home, everyone's just flooded with emails and reports and reading material. It's actually, you know, the feedback we get is people are very fatigued. It's an information overload. So I think our job has been how better can we get information out? So one of the ways was to trial these podcasts and then create presentations with voiceovers that people could use in their teams or in their care homes. So they're little bite-sized pieces of information that's just a bit more digestible and hopefully not really dry. So yeah, these are the posters that you've been given today and our new leaflet. So we understand obviously that posters all came down off of walls for a period in COVID. We're in a period now where we're trying to reinvigorate the community awareness and in your providers, your care homes, you as providers to promote that message and make people aware about vulnerable adults and abuse. So we would ask you kindly to please use them, and if you want more, please ask us, because we're really happy. We want to get out to GP surgeries and libraries and banks, and we really want to try and flood the area with messaging. And yeah, this is, I've come to the end now. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, and I'm sorry if it's been a bit dry. We're both very, very passionate about safeguard, and we've got a long, Emma's been working in the care section, care homes. I also have, I'm a social worker by background. We're very passionate about abuse and helping those to recover from it and helping agencies to improve and to move away from people feeling harassed and frightened about safeguarding and actually thinking it's here to stay, it's always been around. What do we need to do to make it better and to resolve it? So we hope that culturally we're becoming more used to it and people are more relaxed and more trusting in the process to get to an end where we can minimise risk together. So can I take any questions? Do you have anything? Have I been talking in a lot of jargon? Does that make sense?
You have the protection teams, are the ones that come into your properties and they look at the communal areas and they do all of the licensing. And then we have response. Those are the guys with the red truck and the hose pipes and the ones that do the exciting bit. So what we want to do is to make sure that we're working hard so those guys don't have to go out so often and can stay in their stations and drink tea. So my objective is to improve these agency relationships. I want to keep people safe in their homes. I want to prevent harm, injury, admission to hospital, and loss of life. And I think that's probably a common theme for all of you. My background being health, housing, and social care, my aim and objective has never changed. So it's quite a comfortable position for me in the fire service to be bringing this to them. And I achieve this by increasing safe and well visits, which is what I'm going to tell you about today. And I promote also the use of telecare in people's homes. So we do a bit of audience participation because you're a very quiet lot. What is the main cause of fires in the home? Shoot your hands up. What causes fires? What should we be looking out for? Just shout it out. Sorry?
Electrical.
Electrical, definitely, as you can see by the picture there.
Candles.
Definitely candles. Smoking.
Chip pans.
Chip pans. Not so many of those. We used to have a lot, but I think most people don't use chip pans anymore. Wafer oven chips.
Yes, chimney pans.
So you get the drift. There's all sorts of hazards. We say safest houses, don't we? It's probably the least safe place to be. Well, actually, fires are caused by men. Statistically, more men die in fires than women, but also women, actually children and pets. So what we're saying is that empty homes don't catch fire. So what we're looking at is all that prevention work, the interaction that we can have with people to prevent risk. So what are the most common causes? Well, I think you've got them all. You might be surprised to hear that 50% of fires start in the kitchen. We know that Grenfell started with an electrical fault with a fridge freezer on the 4th floor. The next most common reason is electrical appliances. So the smoking then follows up quite close behind with candles. Quite often people have the tea lights, they'll put them in a nice little glass dish to protect it, which is all great, and then they'll leave a net curtain fluttering above it. So we talk about fire risk inequalities in the business that we're in. We all deal with vulnerable people. So we know that the majority of home fires start in the kitchen. 2/3 of fires are due to electrical equipment, and that is the cookers, microwaves, and toasters. The most ones at risk are things that include water, so washing machines and dishwashers. How many people in the energy crisis are now using these overnight in the hope that they've got cheaper electricity? Unless they've got economy 7, they're just doing their washing overnight. It makes no difference. So we're encouraging people to use extra smoke alarms in those areas. So fire risk inequality is about who are the people more likely to die in a fire. Well, if you are a person who is under the influence of alcohol, you are 4 times more likely to die in a fire. If you don't have a smoke alarm, you are 8 times more likely to die in a fire. 2/3 of people who die in West Sussex are over the age of 65. And once you reach the age of 80, that increases tremendously. We know from London Fire Brigade that 25 to 30% of people who die in fires have a high clutter rating. So I wonder how many of you are dealing with people who have hoarding tendencies. And in West Sussex, 84% of the house fires we've had over the last 10 years, the people have had care and support needs, and yet only 16% of those people were previously known to the fire service. So those are the people we're reaching out to, and I think those are the people that are possibly under the umbrella of your care. So we're looking to change behaviours. We said that electricity is a real killer. So we're encouraging people, these are very simple things to be looking out for, to be sharing with your teams and your frontline workers, that, in fact, we stopped calling them frontline workers, that's a bit combative, customer facing workers. So changing behaviours, looking at electrical appliances. How many people have these square blocks and actually they're so heavy they pull out and they arc and they cause all sorts of problems? We encourage people to use extension leads. Are people buying appliances on Amazon, for example, from China because their charging leads are broken down, which they do? Make sure that the people in your houses have kite mark, British kite mark, or the CE European mark. These are one of the major causes of fires, particularly with younger people who tend to charge their phones in bed under their pillows. So for later, there's this lovely game that you can play with people, and I've left, you'll get the presentation. There's this hyperlink. I can't show you the actual hyperlink on here, but what it is you can play the generation game. Now, I'm hoping that some of you are old enough to remember what the generation game is. So what happens is this top row actually goes along on a conveyor, and you can pick out different appliances and plug them in. And on the right-hand side, that indicator will tell you whether that strip is safe. So you can use that with people. It's got things like hairdryers and washing machines, TVs, all that sort of stuff. another version of it here. So if you were to plug in a TV and a kettle, you would be over amping and there would be a risk of fire. There's 2 more spaces. Why can I not use them? So you can work with people to explain to them about ampage and wattage, and the combination means that they may catch fire. It's a good game, no cuddly toys. So one of the things we look at is electrical product recall. So there have been 560 electrical product recalls since 2007, and I think my data is probably out of date. There will have been more since. So there is a website you can go to. Now I know that when people buy an electrical appliance, I bought a washing machine and it had in there a warranty, and I thought, well, that's great. It says, well, if you contact us, we might extend your warranty. And I was thinking, no, you won't. You'll just ask me for insurance and you'll just ask me to extend it and pay more. So I ignored it. It's worth sending them back because they will then contact you if there's a fault and a recall on your appliance. If people haven't filled out those warranties, you can go to this website and see what is at risk in people's homes. And it tells you there what the main ones are. As we've said, kettles, irons, toasters. We'll talk about the kitchen again, aren't we? So what do the fire service do? Well, if you have somebody who has a fire and they kept it secret and they're really embarrassed about it and they don't want anybody to know, we can still go and see them. If you find out somebody had a fire a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, let us know about it and we'll send a fire crew out. We won't have the blue light flashing, but we'll send the red truck and they'll come out and talk to that person. I've never known anybody yet that doesn't open the door to a fireman. So if you have concerns, they will come and they will have a look. And what they'll probably do is also talk to all the neighbours while they're there. And it's called a warm activity. So it's not cold calling and knocking on people's doors trying to sell insurance. They'll knock on people's doors and say, are you safe? Can we come and have a look? So who's eligible for safe and well? Well, basically, anybody who's vulnerable is a good indicator. So people over the age of 65 with additional concerns, any lone parents, people with young children, there are young carers out there. Young children do not hear or register what a smoke alarm going off in the middle of the night means. They've done experiments with children. They get up, have a wee and go back to bed. Parents may be relying on that child to alert them if they're taking medication to sleep overnight. So we would be recommending telecare. So a care line can be alerted and the fire engine will be on its way before that parent's even woken up. We work with high rise, anybody with permanent disability, but also those people coming out of hospital after planned operations. They're living on the 4th floor and they're not mobile. These are all the kind of people that we want to be alerted to, and we can go and see them, even if it's supporting them for the short term. We work with people who can't hear a standard smoke alarm, so if they're deaf or hard of hearing, we liaise with the sensory services. So what is safe and well? I haven't even told you what it is. So basically, it's a booklet. It's an opportunity for the fire officer to go in and have a chat with somebody. We're not a statutory organisation. We can't force our way in. It's all done by consent. And we have this Living Safe and Well booklet. It's about A4 size. It's nice, bright green. So if you go into somebody's home after we've visited for Safe and Well, this booklet on the front page will tell you what we did with that person. We'll pick out about 3 major things around their home that need attention. So we don't just talk about fire prevention. We look at the health and well-being connection. So you're more likely to die from a fall than you are from a fire. But also all those trailing cables that people are falling over could be causing fires. So everything is integrated, and we look at the scams. We link in with the police. So if somebody is being scammed by the phone or on their doorstep, our community fire safety officer will link in with housing, health, social care, other emergency services, care and support, mental health, and if need be, we look at charities to support people for things that they may need. What resources are available? Well, we have Rich here modelling a nice fire retardant blanket, not to be confused with a fire blanket. So this is for people who are entrenched immobile smokers. So we can issue these blankets for them to lay over them while they're smoking. We would suggest they have a glass of water by them to put out any of those little bits of embers that drop on them. We don't ask people to tackle fires. We say get out and stay out. But if you're immobile and you've dropped it on you and it's burning, you need to do something about it in that 6 minutes it takes the fire officer to get to you. So we have on offer all sorts of paraphernalia. So we've got the care lines, we've got retardant sprays. We will go in and fit smoke alarms free, so we don't charge people. So if we turn up and they haven't got the right smoke alarms, we will just put them up there and then. Normally we'd expect people to have 2 in a property. Obviously if it's a studio flat, they would probably only need the 1, but we would look at upstairs and downstairs. There's a nice YouTube video there, people saying about looking at things later. There's a YouTube there of what we do on a safe and well visit, so it can take away all the mystique, so you can see what happens. So we work in partnership. We don't expect you to be fire officers. All we want you to do is to think about the 4 Qs. So what are these 4 Qs? Is there a working smoke detector? Can the person remove themselves independently in the event of a fire? Are the exit routes clear in and out? So could a fire officer come along and run in there with all of his equipment on and his breathing gear? Is there anything else? And the anything else is those things that nag at you when you go home and you think, if that was my mother, what would I want to do about it? So improvised cooking, heating, lighting, scorches, candles. And we're also very keen to talk to people who are being discharged home from hospital with home oxygen, emollient therapy, any of those airflow mattresses. We have had a large number of incidences with emollient therapy. So people are putting paraffin on their bodies and then standing near to heat sources. We've even had a lady, a really sad case where she was doing everything right. She was 92, she lived independently, she had a microwave, she had her meal delivered, she wasn't allowed to use a cooker, she had no open fires, but she had a new microwave for Christmas and she heated the gravy in her microwave and it caught fire. So this really cognitively able, sensible lady went to the kitchen sink and filled up a jug of water, went back to the microwave to extinguish the, so she had a jug of water to take the gravy boat to extinguish it. And as she opened the door, that flame caught the ammonia creams that were on her clothes. That lady died. If she had left that microwave burning, it probably would have burnt itself out. Our sort of advice is get out, stay out. It's better that the house burns down than you die. But actually within a microwave, it's likely to burn itself out, and the fire service were there within less than 6 minutes. So emollients is something that is really big news. We are very keen to talk to anybody using emollients at the moment. These 4 questions, we would like to ask you to integrate them into your assessments. So if you're going to somebody's home, is there a working smoke detector? Fire is probably not something that you think about when you're out in the community, but if you go into someone's home, have a look up and just see if it's there. So we do test it Tuesday. If any of your customer facing workers are going out and there's a smoke alarm in the property, we ask them to test it. Let's test it Tuesday, but then we have to make sure we've got one Monday. So those are the 2 messages we're trying to put out there. So we're looking out for airflow mattresses and oxygen, but that's what they look like. A fire, this is how it progresses from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. I don't think people understand how quickly a fire develops and how dangerous it is. You have that 30 seconds to get yourself out of the property. It's an instant decision, and we recommend that people practice because it then becomes a habit. If you panic when it first happens and it's real, you're a headless chicken, you don't know what you're doing. If you've practiced it, particularly if you're working with people who have any cognitive impairment or any learning disability, it's comforting for them to know, this is what I do, I need to go and do that. So we did a workshop, which I think Rosemary was part of last summer, and we talked about fire risk awareness and intervention. So we've been developing a guidance for your organisation. We've done one for adult social care, we've done one for the police, we're now doing one for care. And we've come to realise that care homes and those working with sheltered schemes, supported schemes and extra care are actually quite different. So we're going to develop those guides. We were developing them as one guidance. So we're going to look now at care homes quite differently. We have experiences where people are coming home from hospital, going into care homes and then smoking on their oxygen. What do you as a care home do about that? It doesn't fall under safe and well. It doesn't actually fall under protection because they only deal with the communal areas in your properties, but we can work with the actual fire crews, and you'd be amazed how people listen to a fireman, a firefighter, because you know that instance when your kid goes to school and you've been telling them something over and over and they come home and say, my teacher said, and you say, oh my God. So it's the same with firemen. If a firefighter actually tells somebody something, they will take it as gospel. So you might want to invite us over. This is really teeny tiny for you, but if you've got the presentation, we can send you the actual copy. We worked through a tick list of the things that you would want to be fire risk aware about in somebody's home or somebody's room or within the environment of a shared house. Under serious case review that Rue was talking about, how do we know what we didn't do? Serious case review is normally about what people didn't do rather than what they did wrong. So this is a checklist. If you follow this checklist, at a serious case review, you can say, I did everything within my power. I did my duty. This is our fire risk matrix that you would probably be keen to share with us. And this is a list of the kind of people we're targeting. I think I just say to you, if they're vulnerable, refer them to us. We are multi-agency partner workers. Once our community fire safety officer has been into that person's home, they will connect with all those partner services that we mentioned in housing, health, social care, and support. We have a response time. So if somebody, we don't visit people on low, they don't need visiting. We may send them some leaflets and talk on the phone. At a medium level, we will respond within 21 days. If it's high, so if that person is immobile and at risk, we will go out within 7 days. And those people who are at, they can't escape by themselves as evidence of fire or a threat of fire, like arson or something like that, we will go next day. So the more information you give us about the concerns you have for the person, the quicker we will respond. We work very closely with adult social care. They produce these learning bulletins, and it's all about what are you looking for when you go into someone's home. So we know that if you're working with someone in a profile bed, they have some incontinence pads, they're on an airflow mattress. Where are those incontinence pads stored? Usually either shoved under the bed because it's a nice big space that's not being used for anything else, or by the front door. So we're asking people to think about what you're seeing when you go into somebody's home, or if you have somebody within your care environment who has big storage of things that are quite flammable. Tom mentioned smoking. So smoking is a huge, huge risk. So any of these things that you see around the home are probably inert until somebody smokes, and then that starts the flame. There is, under the National Fire Chiefs Council, which I'll make sure gets shared with everybody today, a really nice booklet about supporting people in extra care, sheltered housing and supported housing. And it gives you a background on what you think you should be achieving. It's really useful to your designated fire officers, and it might give you some inspiration about anything that you haven't yet considered. Quick study, because I think we're probably getting short on time starting so late. So at the end of May 2016, we installed a smoke alarm with a community fire link for a lady. It wasn't until exactly 3 years later that that was triggered. And what she'd done is she put some toast in the toaster, and she hadn't taken out the tray bit at the bottom of the crumbs. You do know there's a tray for the crumbs, right? Yeah, I didn't know that till I was about 30. So that had caught fire, and it was actually the flames were going up into the cupboards above because she hadn't pulled the toaster out to use it, and that was catching the fire. But by the time she'd panicked and thought about it, the firemen were there. They made sure that she left the building and it was extinguished. Quick reaction is the key to sorting out fires. Oh, this is our referral process. So this is our website. There is an oodle of information on the website. If you want to go and wander around it, I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised at what you will find. For you, the fire safety advice for business, in there are loads and tons of leaflets and information that you can refer to. So this is our website. You see the picture of the lady in blue with the community fire safety officer. That's my page. So if you go to that page, and on it, it will say safe and well visit. You click on there and it will say request to visit. It is 3 clicks. What you can do is you can just save the hyperlink and just go straight in there. So there's a form, takes about 5 minutes, 7 minutes maybe, we timed it. And that's all the information we need to triage somebody to make a home visit. All we need to make sure is that they give us consent. So here's some nice statistics. We talked about the aging population. 30% of all households in the UK are currently over retirement age. 48% of projected growth in households in 2026 will be amongst people over age 65. The interesting bit is one study suggests that 51% of people in care homes have moved there after hospitalisation because a return home is not practical. We want to keep people in the community for as long as possible, and we will work with them to make sure their homes are safe and they can stay there longer. 15% of people were admitted directly to residential care because of serious housing problems. So this multi-agency working together piece that Rue was talking about is something we're very keen to be part of. So that's all the details that you can have. Also, I can link you with your local fire station. I didn't want to list them all because there's 25 of them, but anybody wants their local fire station details if they want to do some work, they will come out and do activities. They'll come out for sort of 3 or 4 hours, knock on people's doors and see what's going on inside their homes, or chat to your groups if you have group homes, or you want us to come to a coffee morning, or we went to a Jubilee event, things like that. We love to show up. And that's it. Any questions?
Any other questions? No, lovely, thank you. Is Juliet here? Oh yes, there she is. Hiya. We've got quite a lot to do after the break as well, so I think probably we'll I'm sure they'll be gripped with what you're going to say, Juliet.
I'm talking about costs, so I'm not entirely sure this is the best thing to do just before a break, but yeah, that's
So
absolutely fine.
I'll
Great.
so-
Have I got slides anywhere
yes,
that
so hopefully,
I won't confuse you, don't worry.
so obviously Juliet from West Sussex County Council talking about fair cost of care exercise, and yeah, just right click on the click.
Brilliant, thank you very much. It's really nice to see everybody,
Online
and
as
you're
well, so-
online as well, so I'll
Yeah.
stand here, make sure that I can be seen everywhere. It's really nice to see everybody. This is the first time I think I've done a provider forum standing up for the last 2 years, so it's quite a novelty, but it's really, really nice to be able to see people below their shoulder line as well, which is great. So thank you very much for having me here. I will try not to make it too dry in your run up to the coffee break, as I'm sure you will be getting to the point of needing one now. So cost of care exercise. So the cost of care exercise is something that the Department of Health and Social Care have required local authorities to do. Some of you may have heard some of this before, so again, I will apologise if you're already aware and familiar with what that is. So essentially, as you're all, I'm sure, very aware, there's a lot of change in health and social care over the next year or two. That we've had the changes in the clinical commissioning groups, now integrated care systems. We've got the adults and health care reform, the care reforms that are expected to come in next year. And there's a lot of work in kind of planning around some of that change. So it was really interesting to hear Sophie's kind of review of the last 2 years, and just incredible to hear what you've gone through. And I'm coming to talk to you about the next thing. There's always something, isn't there, that's kind of coming, but so you've been through an awful lot. This is really kind of now planning for the next stage of reform for adults and health. So what Department of Health and Social Care have asked local authorities to do is to complete a cost of care exercise in every council, every local authority, to really set out what the costs are of business, of residential care and domiciliary care businesses across the piece. And it's very much an evidence-based approach. So it's asking, essentially, it's a survey for providers to complete, which sets out essentially what the costs are that your businesses are incurring. And what it's asked them to do is local authorities then need to submit that information to national government, to the Department of Health and Social Care by October. Now, this is a really key piece of work and a really key exercise, because there's recognition nationally about increasing costs, but also that self-funders often pay a different cost to what councils will purchase care at, for example, and in leading towards those reforms, where particularly things like the cap on care costs are coming in and so on, it's really important that we understand what is the actual cost of care. So this is essentially what that's striving to do. So in the way in which that's being done is that we have in each local authority will decide on what tools they use to gather that information. And in West Sussex, we have decided that we will use the tools that have been developed nationally. So there is a tool for domiciliary care providers, and what's in scope is for providers who are delivering domiciliary care to people over the age of 18. It doesn't include supported living, it doesn't include block contracts, and there's a few other things that are not included as well. Those domiciliary care providers can complete what's called the ARC tool, ARCC, and that's been commissioned by nationally through the Local Government Association to collect information. And essentially it's a spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet that allows you to capture all of the costs that your organisation is incurring. And that then generates essentially an hourly rate at the end of that, which sets out what the cost is. For residential and nursing care providers, we're using the iEasy tool, and again, that's been commissioned nationally. So for larger organisations who are working across local authorities, it will in many cases it will be the same tool that you're using, and that's the one that West Sussex is using. That's a web-based one, so it means that you submit all of the information online, and then you can submit it to the local authorities which you're doing business within. They are really good tools in that they've been developed with providers and they've been developed with local authorities. But as people are starting to use them, there are a number of questions and a number of things we're trying to help with, as well as getting support from other places, which we'll come on to in a second. But essentially, what we'll be doing with all of that information is we're asking all providers that are delivering across West Sussex to submit their information to the West Sussex County Council so that we can essentially pull together and submit that information to national government. And what they're looking for, what they've asked us to do, is the upper quartile, the lower quartile, and the median costs. And very specifically the median, so that we're not adding it all up and dividing by, it's the kind of middle cost. And it's that median cost that they're referring to as the fair cost of care. Now, there is no one cost of care, obviously, we're very aware of that. Your businesses will have different rate structures, different costs that you're incurring, but it's intended to try and work towards what they're looking at as the median cost of care. And we have to submit that by the 14th of October, and it will also has to be published. So we will be published and available on our website. And as part of that, we also have to do a draft plan of what the council intends to do to move towards that fair cost of care. So that's about making sure that there is sustainable services and sustainable rates in West Sussex and across the country. So we need to set out what we're planning to do around that over the coming years, and that is referred to as the Market Sustainability Plan. A draft needs to be done in October, the final needs to be done in February. Because these exercises only include domiciliary care for over 18-year-olds and residential and nursing care for over 65-year-olds, we're very aware in West Sussex that that is not the whole of the market. It is a proportion of the care market. So as I said, supported housing is excluded from the exercise, extra care is excluded, and residential and nursing for predominantly learning disabilities and mental health customers are not included within that exercise. That doesn't mean that we won't be considering them in West Sussex. We absolutely will. It's just not within the scope of the DHSC requirement. So what we will be doing as part of our market sustainability plan is also working on plans around how we commission those services as well. Apologies, because you probably can't read all the text on my slides, but just to let you know, you will have them and there is lots of information available, so I will share all of that. So in terms of engaging in the exercise, as I said, we're really asking all providers in West Sussex to complete the tools so that we can generate all of that information and inform nationally as to what the cost of care is in West Sussex. And we're asking for that to be done by 1st of August, which is 2 weeks Monday. And that will enable us to then review all of that information, analyse it, come back to you with any queries, make sure we've got an understanding of what it's telling us, and then submit the information. There's a couple of quotes. There's a quote there from the Care Provider Alliance, which is really supporting and encouraging providers to do this as a one-off opportunity, a real opportunity to set out what are those costs and to ensure that we can see the cost, not just the cost that we pay or the rate that's charged, the whole cost. And the same for the Home Care Association. And we think there are real opportunities here as well in terms of the understanding the costs across the county. That's really, really important for us. Supporting national government to understand those costs, which is again really important, particularly in terms of thinking about funding allocation, for example. So the government have set out that they will provide some funding attached to this fair cost of care, and that's something obviously we want to make sure that West Sussex can benefit from. And it also has a real potential to help you to understand your businesses as well. So the tools are designed that you can make changes within those tools and tweak figures to say, okay, well, if this is going to go up this year, what's the impact going to be on my on my costs in total. So it will give you a real sense as to if you had to pay more for staff in one area, what would that do? If you needed to pay more for on PPE, which you might have not have paid in relation to the PPE being provided, but if you did in the future, what would that do to costs, etc. And we really need to make sure that we get a real range of providers. So if we don't get a good response, it will only mean that we have a small amount of returns that will just give a small proportion and a small sense as to what the costs are. So that's why we're really trying to encourage as many providers as possible to engage with it, particularly all range of organisations. So there will be some national providers who will be developing their cost of care and submitting that information nationally and across to lots of local authorities that they're working with. They will have different structures of being able to provide that information to some of our very small local organisations. But it's really crucial that we get a real range. So would really encourage particularly smaller organisations, if you're struggling with it, there's plenty of support and you can contact us and we will help you through that, as well as Langbuurson, which I will come on to. So you may have heard of Langbuurson or previously. So Langbuurson are an organisation who've done a lot on cost of care previously. They've produced lots of reports and so on around it. And in West Sussex, what we really wanted to do was to make sure we really see the best of this opportunity so that it tells us everything we need to know in terms of commissioning. So my role as head of commissioning and older people is about making sure we've got the right services in place across the county, that there are services and solutions that all residents of West Sussex can access, and that we're commissioning those on behalf of customers where they need us to do so. So one of the things that we wanted to do is really harness this as actually, this is a real good learning opportunity. And if we get that information right, that will inform our sustainability plan, that will inform our commissioning intentions, and it will give us a realised sense of what do we need to commission, what do we need to develop, how do we work with providers to make sure there's enough provision of extra care or residential care or nursing care or dementia services, etc. So we've engaged with Langbuurson to help us with that. So essentially what they're going to be doing is, one, they're going to start supporting providers to make sure that you're aware of it, that you make sure that you're able to participate and to give advice, assistance and guidance and help you through actually completing the tool. And also they will then contact you if they think, oh, that doesn't look quite right, or it's different to what we would have expected. They'll give you a ring and say, are you sure that's the right figure? So we can just make sure that we're reporting it accurately. And then they will help us with the analysis of that. So they will look at things like, you know, in across the areas, what's the difference between costs in Crawley compared to costs in Midhurst, and you know, all of those different things that it's really important for us to understand. The contact name for Langbuurson is Estelle, who her email address is on there and her telephone number. They will be contacting providers generally anyway, but you can contact them. Don't wait for them to call you. They will very keen and happy to help you through that. And then just to finish on, there's a few bits just to highlight in terms of the support and guidance. So there's an awful lot of support and guidance to help you to do this. One of the things which I heard earlier was the guidance is great, but there's so much of it. So it actually, sometimes it might be just as easy just to drop us an email or to give us a ring, and there are opportunities to do that as well. So we are providing things like newsletters and briefings, and there's information on the website, but do just contact us if you think you're struggling. So Estelle's email is there for Langbuurson with any queries on the submissions. We've set up an email, so cost of care at West Sussex, that's to submit the home care returns to, but also if you need any advice or support from the team of West Sussex County Council. There's links there to the guidance, which sets out essentially what local authorities are required to do and gives you a bit more information about that. And then we've got a few bits there that you can link to as well. So there's links there on how to access the residential tool, the iEasy tool I mentioned, and also the home care tool, which you can download. But also in the blue at the top left on the screen is a link to the provider zone. So we've been sending out briefings for quite a while. We've been doing a few forums over the last few weeks, but if you haven't managed to catch those, all of that information is now on the provider zone, so you can access that there, and we'll keep keeping you updated. So over the next few weeks, whilst you're completing, we'll be sending you out emails for anything that we hear about that's been updated. We get lots of emails about from the tools that they're updating to make sure things are, if providers are struggling with things, they can adapt, and so we can keep you updated that way. The Care Provider Alliance is doing drop-ins and workshops and has videos accessible, as do other parts of nationally as well, so we can make sure you've got everything you need. Just a couple of points on data protection. So I can understand absolutely this is all commercially sensitive information, and that retains as commercially sensitive. We don't share that with organisations outside of those working on it. So we have, as I said, we're working with Lang & Buisson, and we also have another, Paul, who couldn't be here today, Paul Fevan, is working very closely with me around supporting the project as well. They don't work for West Sussex County Council, but they do work with us under a confidentiality agreement. So it's very, very clear that in this piece of information, that's who it's accessible to, and they support that under a confidentiality agreement, so that information doesn't get shared wider. We don't share it with other outside organisations. It's not shared with the identifiable information about your business won't be shared with other organisations, won't be shared with CQC, etc. It's a combination of the information that gets published, and a combination of, so it's anonymised information that needs to go to the Department of Health and Social Care about what those median and lower range of rates and higher low range of rates are. And just to reassure you on that, we've been working with Rosemary and Tom and others as well, with WSPiC to pull that into a data protection, so that you've just got the assurance there about how it will be used, where it will be used, and everything around your data. And that has been sent out, I think, in the last couple of days on a briefing, but the summary is also there, and if anybody wants it, do let me know and I can send you. So I think that's it in a nutshell, and hopefully that just gives you a little bit of a whistle stop on what it is and what we're trying to do. A few key points we will keep, as I say, look out for the weekly briefings that we'll be sending through the cost of care, also the provider newsletters, which I'm sure most of you will be receiving. If you're not, let me know, and all the information will be on there. Submission for both returns by the 1st of August, the residential one through the iEasy tool, the ARC one through the to be submitted to the email address. Lang & Buisson will contact you, and we are going to be running further sessions. So as we move, once we've completed the actual cost of care, everyone's submitted their information, we will be then actively working with providers around the market sustainability plan and making sure that we can really engage with you about, so what does that mean? How do we work with you now going forward? What do we need within West Sussex? And then we'll submit the information in October, and as I say, that will be available published as well, and also the full market sustainability plan in February next year. Thank you for bearing with me with a dry topic before your coffee break, and if anybody got any questions for me.
Any questions from anybody? Juliet, thank you. You have a tough job getting all of us to engage with that. I've filled out the care home tool and the dom care tool. They're both a bit daunting when you first look at them, but actually when you get into them, they're not that bad. And as Juliet said, there's loads of help available. Who in the room is actually involved in submitting their own organisation's cost of care? So a few people. Well, as a couple of the speakers have said, we will be sharing all the slides with everybody in attendance, either online or here. So you'll get those contact details. And for those of you who aren't involved in it, please take the message back to whoever in your organisation is going to be doing the cost of care tool, or if there isn't anybody, then please encourage them to do it. WSPiC mostly represents the smaller independent providers across the county. I'm pretty certain all the big providers will have this absolutely nailed, and their figures will be going in. And I think it's really important that our figures are part of the picture. It's almost a cliche, I keep hearing it often. This really is a once in a lifetime pretty much opportunity for us to make the people with the purse strings in this case really understand what the real cost of care is. And I can't believe there's any organisation in the room whose costs aren't higher than the county council are currently able to pay. So I'm not knocking the council. It's just that's the whole point of the exercise, really. So it's really important that we all do put our figures in. A couple of tips, particularly for the care home version. When you're working on it, again, for the people who are doing it, or share this with your provider, with the responsible people, please make sure you save regularly, because if you walk away and it logs you out after a period of time, then it won't have saved the work you've done, and it won't even be obvious when you go back to it that it's not logged in. So it's one of those slightly, just remember to save regularly. I've completed both of my tools now, but I haven't submitted yet, and Juliet won't like me saying this, but I would say don't rush to submit, because once you've completed it, you will probably then hear something else, another nugget of information. Oh, actually, I haven't got that quite right. I need to change that on my figures, and it's quite hard. It can be changed after it's gone in, but I think you have to contact the council and get
I think in terms of the submission for my easy, I'm not sure how that works, because it then gets sent over to us, and we then go through, I think, and verify that information. I mean, what I would say is, absolutely, if you think you've submitted something and then you think you've missed something, just drop us an email, and I'm sure we can resolve that and work that through. But also, and I know I will be absolutely, I understand entirely wanting to make sure that you've got everything in there, but Langburson also are there to support you with that as well. So if you think they will actively be calling, so just they will give you some tips and hints as part of that as well, and make sure that you're collecting all of the information. But also, if you submit it, particularly the dom care one, it is a spreadsheet, so we can accept it another if you notice any errors, and they will contact you if they think, or there's something that's not quite right there. So don't worry too much if you missed something.
Can we test you now?
Yes, is that any better? Can you hear me now?
Better, but say something else, James.
Yeah, this is James. So I'm just testing. Can you hear me okay now? Can you?
Yes, we can, James. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Great. So we've got some people. I think we've got some people online, and you've got a room full of people there. Have you, Tom?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, shall I make a start?
Yeah, I'm just trying to click forward on the slides now, and it's having its customary pause before moving.
Okay.
Hopefully, every time I fiddle with it up to now, it's suddenly started working.
Well, don't worry too much about the slides. I can always circulate them afterwards if that's easier.
Okay.
So, yeah, don't worry about that. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is James Sage. I'm an employment law partner and head of the health and social care team at RWK Goodman. We specialise in providing legal advice to care providers, and my area of specialism is on the kind of HR and employment law side, which is what I'm talking to you about today. Now, I can't see those of you in the room, but what I was going to ask for is a show of hands from those of you that are finding recruitment a real challenge at the moment. And maybe Tom can just shout back how many of you got your hands in the air. Lots of people?
So, yeah, most people. Yeah, I think, yeah, pretty much everybody, actually. I think, yeah.
Yeah. So that reflects what we're hearing from the care providers that we're speaking to on a daily basis, that recruitment has now become pretty much the single biggest issue. And do you know what the single best way to solve the recruitment challenge is with the least amount of cost? It's not to focus on recruitment, it's to focus on staff retention and improving your turnover rates. Because if you have less staff leaving, then recruitment becomes less of a problem. And so I'm going to focus today on how to be an employer of choice and boost your staff retention rates. The turnover rates in the care sector are high. The average is around 30%. And I know some of you may be doing better than that, but that is the average. That effectively means that 30% of the care workforce are leaving their roles each year. So if you had 50 staff in your care service, that would be 15 people that are leaving every year. And that's happening year after year. And it's very difficult for any business to manage with that sort of level of staff attrition. And there are various different kind of implications for you as a business. The first one is around care quality, because you're going to be losing staff who have relationships with your clients, and you'll be losing staff who have significant experience of how your organisation works. There'll be financial implications, because it's expensive to keep recruiting staff each time someone leaves, and generally it's thought to cost an employer a few £1,000s each time someone needs to be recruited. There's also the cost of agency staff to fill gaps when someone leaves. And quite a lot of providers we've spoken to recently are saying that they've got a waiting list of clients, but they're unable to take them on to fill up their beds in the residential side because they haven't got enough staff to manage more residents. And obviously that has a huge impact on the profit of the service. There are also operational challenges. So the time and effort it takes to fill gaps with agency staff, and also the significant management time and resource of recruiting, inducting and onboarding new staff. So the solution to this is to focus on how you can improve your retention rates. And a key part of that is seeking to become an employer of choice, so that your existing workforce are happy working for you and want to stay working with you, and they're not leaving because of unhappiness in the current job or because they're being attracted to other roles either within the sector or outside the sector. So how do you go about doing this? I mean, there's a large range of things that you consider, but I've broken it kind of down to 4 key ones to talk to you about today. So the first one is around the job, so what you're actually requiring people to do. It's really important from an engagement perspective that you're giving staff meaningful work, which for most, obviously for most people doing care work, that's an easy win for you, but also work that's at the top level of their skills and experience. If staff aren't being pushed and aren't doing and learning new skills, then their engagement. Do you want any?
Although it's customary for Karen to be right in the middle.
It is.
No, that's fine. Just the lockdown waits.
It wouldn't be the same. I was just going to take a photo if anyone's like, oh, you had your face, but it'd be great if you could give us all away.
Oh, you're looking good, people.
Yeah, sorry.
Well done, Hayley.
Nice.
Come on, Sophie.
No, give us mine. Fabulous, thank you.
Right, thank you. And over to Karen.
Thank you so
Hopefully we're just clicking through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry
there
to
you go.
talk data. Oh my goodness.
So yeah, we've got the online audience as well. So
Online audience of 24. Hello, nice to see you. Yes, I'm talking data. I apologise for that, but I do it unreservedly because the facts and figures that James just put to you about the turnover, the sickness absence, all comes from the data set that you complete for us. So I'm going to really give you hopefully an idea of what's involved and what the benefits for you. So it's a free service. It's now called the Adult Social Care Data Set. It used to be known as the NMDS. What we do is we gather information from that, but I'd really like to emphasize what you can do as a management tool with it, because you can, once you put your data about your staffing, your pay rates, you can then anonymously benchmark how you're doing to the rest of like services in your area. You wouldn't know who they were, but it gives you then an idea of how you're benchmarking against some of this stuff. So if you're looking at or trying to persuade trustees or proprietors, do you know our pay rates aren't keeping up with the rest? This will give you evidence base, because you're benchmarked against like organisations who are providing the same sort of service. So there's one of the things. It also, once you put the data on, it helps you manage your records. We've tried to make it much more user-friendly than it has been before. So now you can actually put your training and qualification records on there, and you can download your training reports, and it also gives you reminders of when some training is coming up for being due. So it gives you a variety of ways to cut these reports out by, job role, by topic, by mandatory, by core, by care certificate completion, by qualification rates. So increasingly it's not mandatory. It is for local authorities, however, they have to complete those all by September each year.
Brilliant. Right. Thank you, Juliet. We are running late. Apologies. That's our technical issues that we had earlier. So if we can have as quick a coffee break as possible, if we definitely start back at 20 past and a bit quicker if we can. Mad rush to the loos, grab a coffee and a cake. We've got cakes apparently if you're here. Sorry if you're online, you have to get your own cake and we'll see you at 20 past. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Juliet. I've lost it completely now. Oh, there we go. Right, our next speaker is Lucy, who is a dietitian, talking to us about nutrition and hydration in hot weather. How very topical. There you go. So we'll check out, and don't forget the online.
Yeah,
crowd.
perfect. That's great, thank you. Hey everyone, so my name is Lucy. I am prescribing and care home support dietitian for the north of West Sussex. As I said, I'm going to be talking about nutrition and hydration in the hot weather. Really topical at the moment because it's absolutely boiling. I hope everyone is coping okay in heat. At 33 weeks pregnant, I know I am starting to struggle and I'm waiting for it to get colder again. So just some of just to go over the session outline, what I'm going to cover. So the effect of heat on health and sort of the heat related illnesses that we might see. So I am going to talk to you sort of about heat waves as well as just in general hot weather, because it's really similar advice, but you can just see some different kind of things happening. Things that you can do to be prepared in advance, and then actions for during the hot weather. The importance of hydration and good hydration practice, the importance of nutrition, and what we call the food first approach, and then considerations during hot weather. So the effects of heat on health. So extreme heat can be really dangerous, but especially in older people and those living in care homes. So really important that we're on top of it. So during a heat wave, when temperatures remain high for longer than a couple of days, it can prove fatal. And in 2003, when there was a heat wave in the southeast of England, there were approximately 2,000 extra deaths. And the biggest increase in the risk of deaths was amongst those in care homes. So really important, people in care homes are a really vulnerable group, and so really important that we're doing absolutely everything we can to try and stop any extra deaths from occurring. So the message really is being prepared for the warmer months. We never know what's going to happen in this country. One summer is absolutely rubbish and the next summer is 30 degrees for about a month straight. You never know what's going to happen, but always better to be prepared if you can. So during a heat wave, some of the illnesses that you can see would be an increased risk of cardiovascular and respiratory illness. That's the thing that causes the majority of excess mortality during heat wave. So just to be aware of those. And then you can get things.
Can you talk with more perhaps microphone on that laptop?
Yes. Yeah, is that better? I'll try and talk a bit louder as well, sorry. And other things to be aware of would be things like heat cramps, heat rash, heat edema, so mainly ankles, getting swollen ankles, swollen feet, something that I'm really suffering with at the moment. You can have heat syncope, so dizziness and fainting, heat exhaustion, heat stroke. A lot of these things come down to dehydration. That can have a massive impact. So when I look through my list of the conditions on here and I look at my notes I've written, all of them pretty much say is due to a lack of hydration, and just the effects that you need that much extra fluid when we're sweating from areas that we never knew that we could sweat from, especially care home residents who spend a lot of time sitting in chairs, and you can get sort of sweaty under your bum and in between your legs, and so it's just really important that we stay on top of the hydration, and keep an eye out for any of these illnesses occurring, and picking up on them as quickly as we possibly can. So things to do in advance for the hot weather. So my recommendation would be in spring every year, just pull together a checklist. It can be the same checklist every year, but just thinking about the care home. So this isn't necessarily just about food and fluid, but thinking about the building and the surroundings. Can the windows be shaded? Have you got blinds that work? Have you got curtains that you can pull? Can the windows be opened? Do you know which room is coolest in your care home? So just things like that to make sure that you know what you're dealing with, and can you make it any better?
Any questions from anybody? Juliet, thank you. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Nada.
Oh, hello, and it's wonderful to be here today. I know you keep hearing it, but it truly is. And for me, it's something quite different because I'm used to be sitting over there where you are, and listening to other people. And before I start, I just want to say how wonderful your presentation was, Sophie. I really felt I could relate to every one of those things you said. So my name is Anna Wakeford. I'm project manager for the brand new adventure in Sussex called Sussex Digital InReach team. And what is it that we do? Well, our mission is to support you, care providers across Sussex, to access and deliver digital transformation. And that means really access to all sorts of digital projects and digital options that are available to us in Sussex. The reason behind all this is obviously to improve care. So what is it we do? We, as I said, we're involved in a number of digital projects that are happening in Sussex, but some of the things are electronic care planning, and we'll hear about that a lot more later. EMA, remote monitoring and falls prevention equipment, WSPiC, cybersecurity and digital skills training, events and support and resources. So if you want to hear more detail about what we do, we've designed a little video, and it sort of ties into one of the other presenters, I think, called Safeguarding Board. They've created podcasts. I'm not going to play it now. It's only 5 minutes long. So if you do want to hear what we do listen to the little presentation, and you can use that something along those lines for your own business, or maybe your brochure could be presented in a video presentation, or maybe your recruitment drive. Do let me know if you are interested, and I can put you in contact with the right people. So one of the projects we are involved in and we are helping providers in doing is the SPT. And if you haven't heard me talk about the SPT by now, I don't know how you manage it. It's a miracle. It is a national program. It is funded by Better Security, Better Care, and it is designed to help care providers improve their data and cyber security. And basically, it is the first step to what is coming next, and that is digitalizing social care program. It is an online self-assessment. So self-assessment is the key here. It is up to you to decide whether you meet the criteria and how you meet the criteria. And when you publish your assessment, it will just say that you published it, the day you published it, and to what standard. There are several benefits to completing your DSPT. It's a stepping stone to start with, but also it gives you access to NHS Mail if you haven't got it already. During the pandemic, you were given access to NHS Mail without completing the SPT because NHS wanted you to be able to share confidential patient information in a safe and secure way. And NHS Mail is a secure mail system. So if you haven't got NHS Mail by now and you haven't completed your DSPT, you will need to do your DSPT first. It also gives you proxy medication ordering, access to proxy medication ordering, I've never known anyone who's got proxy who's saying I'd rather be without it and I want to do my medications the old way. It basically means that you can log into your surgery's portal and order repeat prescriptions online. And what's good about that is you don't spend hours trying to phone, going between surgeries and pharmacies, trying to find out what's happening with your prescriptions. You know at every point where they are, what's happening to them. It saves an awful lot of time, and it's got a good audit trail as well. And it also gives you access, completing the SPT gives you access to the shared record. I'm going to talk about shared record in a minute. It answers several of your queries. I've listed here which queries they are. I know they're all going to change, but at the moment, that's what it is. And it proves your compliance with the data protection legislation and the 10 data security standards. We are offering a lot of support for the SPT, so you can either attend one of our sessions we are running. They're all on Eventbrite, or you can just contact me. We also offer one-to-one support, and it's all free. As said, we are funded by Vet Security, Better Care. It is all free for you, so just get in touch with me. We can do one-on-one support, we can do webinars, or you can attend one of the nationally run webinars if you prefer. I think Tom sneaked this one in. It's about national data opt-out. So what this is, it basically started life in the NHS. And it gives every person the opportunity to opt out of sharing certain information. And that information we are talking about right now is information used for planning and research. So if any of the people you support have opted out, you cannot use that information for planning and research. And I know that probably now capacity tracker is popping into your head because if some of it, that confidential information is confidential and it is used for planning, but capacity tracker does not apply. It is exempt from the national data opt-out. By 31st of July, which is only 2 weeks away or so, you will all have to comply with the national data opt-out. As I mentioned before, it only applies to confidential patient information. What this means in practice for you is if you are taking part in any research or planning and it involves confidential information, personal information from the people you support, and they have opted out, you cannot use it. There is a system called Mesh, and apparently it's quite a massive system to find out if any of your residents or people you support have opted out. So if they have, that's to say you can't use the information. If they with the opt-out, we are automatically opted in, so you have to make a positive choice to opt out. So again, you've probably all been issued letters by your GPs at one point. You can visit National Data Opt-out information on digital social care, and it will give a lot of information. It will need a little bit of work for you to do on top of what you're doing already, and that is just an update to your data protection policy and to your privacy notices. We have done a number of sessions to support people with this, and this is the recording of one of the sessions we did. We have no plans of running anymore until at least September. So I say you do need to apply, but comply by the 31st, and this is the link to both digital social care and our recording. Now, this mundane stuff out of the way, let's talk about something exciting, and that is about digitizing and connecting social care. And I'm sure you've heard me go on about this by now, but the government program to reform social care is aiming for 80% of adult social care providers who are registered with CQC to have access to digital social care record by March of 2024. In Sussex, we are on around 54% for care homes and a little bit less for the non-care homes. And now we go, why are we doing all this? Well, we want information shared, and we want you and the other services to have access to information that you need to support the people you care for, which will, as again, I'm sure you've heard, data saves lives and all the rest. So you'll be able to have access to up-to-date live information held by the local shared record. And the local shared record in Sussex is called Plexus. At the moment, as far as I'm aware, there's only one care home in Sussex that has access to Plexus. It is in Bexhill. And at the moment, they're able to access the record using a web browser. But the idea is for digital social care record that you use to be able to communicate with the local shared record. So it's system to system. It sounds marvelous. So you'll be able, basically, your system you'll be able to look through your system into what GP consultation with one of your residents said. It'd be, as I said, absolutely amazing. But in order to do this, we need to have certain things in place. And one of those things is to have the digital infrastructure in place to support all this. WSPiC is the first stepping stone because it says we have the cyber security and data security measures in place. But the other part is to have other digital infrastructure in place and the right level of digital maturity. And for that, NHS Sussex have commissioned a company called Orbis to assess the digital readiness of all 731 care homes in Sussex. And my colleague from Orbis is just over there. So if you want to talk to him later at the end, he's got some leaflets and he's got some questions and answers. And he'll be able to give you information. So Orbis will be calling you. You may have received information from me, but Orbis will be giving you a buzz just to try and book an appointment. They will be actually doing site visits. And Tom has had his inspection, the software inspection really, an assessment already. So he can, if you want to talk to Tom, I'm sure he won't mind. I called it just an inspection, but here I say it is not an inspection of any description, and information gathered will not be shared with anybody. That it be kept confidential, and if it is shared, it will be anonymized so that so your care home, your care setting can be identified. It won't be shared with CQC to go, oh, do you know what, their internet speed is not that great. They will be asking a number of questions. So they will need a member of staff to be made available who can answer basic questions about data security.
I'm sorry, I'm just checking which microphone they're saying they can't hear you very well.
Oh.
But it is that computer, so just
Okay, shout. Okay. The information that we gathered or that Orbis will gather will be used as evidence for future funding. So if we are saying that, I don't know, 40% of care homes in Sussex don't have good internet connection, that obviously that is something that that investment is needed, and this is evidence. Also, there will be funding. This hasn't been confirmed yet, so I can't tell you what it is, but there will be funding available to help you with your digitization. The offer of Orbis is only available to care homes at the moment. Whether it changes later, I don't know. But at the moment, it's only available to care homes. However, we have designed our own online self-assessment for non-care homes. It is very short. It will only take 5 minutes of your time. And again, it will just give us information of where you are on the level of your digital maturity. So if we ask you questions like, what is your internet speed like? Can you do video conferencing? Are your staff trained? Are they competent to do video conferencing? Do you do NHS mail? Simple question like you will definitely know the answer to. So if you want a link for the self-assessment, it's just there. So you just follow that. I said it is going to take only 5 minutes of your time. We are running a number of events to support you with all sorts of things and more planned for September. These are just some events we're running now in July and August. So do just follow the links or email me. And I'm not going to go through these resources, but there's a lot of them. Digital social care, excellent resource. Lots of very, very useful information. And if you want to know more or you need any help, just look us up on our website or email me or my colleague Brian. Email addresses are there. And that is all for me. Cool.
very good. So I've muted the sound on that now. I'm not sure whether online's getting an echo or not. Yeah, thank you. Right, I'm just going to whiz through some WSPiC updates very quickly, except my clicker's given up the ghost again. So we'll just go without clicker. Essentially, the only couple of points I was going to make were that we are working more and more in partnership with West Sussex County Council So Juliet, who was here today, is really great, I think, at communicating with care providers. And Paul Fevan, who's working with her on the cost of care, is great as well. We have met Alan Sinclair, who's the new Director of Adult Social Services. He also seems very keen to engage, and we are due to meet the West Sussex MPs for a second time on the 29th of July. We had our first meeting with them a couple of months ago, and they all came to the meeting, all engaged really well. I'm not convinced that the meeting on the 29th of July is going to go ahead, because they may think they've got other more important things to do, but at the moment that date's in the diary. And then I was going to actually turn to Hayley, who's busy sorting out other things. Did you want to give a quick update on all the website-y bits and bobs that you're doing, and the training, and yeah, come up and shout at, well, my laptop, in fact.
They can hear. I've got a thumbs up.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay.
Yep, go for it.
Thank you. I appreciate we're over time, so I'll be super quick. Website-wise, we're updating it so that we can hold more information, more resources, lots of exciting things, blogs and all sorts are being developed, which is really exciting. The key thing that I just want to talk about is training opportunities. So we've got a massive opportunity at the moment to support you with developing yourselves, your staff, and all that jazz. So we sent out training surveys, we've talked to you, we've got directors experience, and something that's really come out is the trainer and the in-house trainers, and how beneficial that's been throughout the pandemic. And that's been our own experience as well. So I know when lots of training sessions were cancelled, you couldn't meet face to face. Prior to Teams and Zoom coming on the scene, we needed to adapt and find a way to keep our staff up to date and trained. And not only that, we had so much extra to train them on. So things like clinical skills, continence care, wound care, coronavirus, all of that we needed to get across and train our staff. And what helped was having in-house trainers. So we've got this opportunity to put on training. On the back of your agenda, there's a little tick box. We would love to just get a really good understanding of what kinds of topics, if we put them on, would be useful to you and for your staff. So the level 3 award in delivering training, the medication competency assessors, and the moving and handling, that's the last one. The other thing that we know is that lots of staff start as care workers in the kitchen. I started in the kitchen, and then they work their way up and they study, they do their level 5, they want to be a manager, but sometimes there are some gaps in people management, fostering a positive culture, those kinds of things. So we've working with Red Choir, who are one of our training sponsors, to put on some supervisory skills, so that those little gaps to try and fill and help develop your staff. And then the last one is practical first aid training, because we know that can be a real tough one. And our wonderful, one of our directors, Helen, has got the training room, all the equipment that's needed, and a trainer to put on that first aid training. And the one that I can't miss is Rosemary, who did the CAPE training for dementia communication and interaction training for dementia. That's something that hopefully we can roll out as well. So one message from that is just please, if you wouldn't mind just ticking if you were interested in any of that, so we get a good idea of what we need to do to move it forward.
And the online people email.
And the online people, well, everybody, I'll send out a link to an online kind of survey as well. And part of the website development is that there will be resources to deliver those training sessions in all the mandatory and core on our website if you go on that training. Have I covered everything?
Also putting a bid to health education and with the supportive town to try and appoint a workforce development manager, which would be fantastic, to support the registered managers to look at any of their area gaps or skills that they think just they could gain, and to sort out the repository. And I don't know when that's going to be. No, so it's gone in for a full-time workforce development manager and Sussex that we can work in with all of our treasures community. We also start to take training as we speak. We've got a meeting next week to work out how we're going to try and facilitate that. It's a really interesting training piece and it's a collection.
Rosemary, I'm conscious that the online people won't be able to hear you.
No.
But it's cake training, yeah?
It could be cake training, sorry, I missed that one again. But I'm really worried that at least 3 of those presentations today apply to me. Because I've been working in the care sector in West Sussex for 25 years myself when I was 50. So, you know, I'm really quite worried about some of this now. So you just think about it. But it's a cake training. And unless you want to, we will be sending out the details for it today.
Thank you. And just lastly, very quickly, can the other board members in the room just stand up for a second? There you go. So everybody knows Rosemary. These guys are, well, those 2 guys are fairly new to our board. So I don't know if you all know JC and Sophie already, and then we've got Kristen and Kevin who recently joined us. So thank you guys very much for joining.
Thank you, Kevin, because you really posted for a reason.
Yes, IT Guru was a massive extra bonus today. Thank you. Yeah. But all of you very useful, valuable members of the team. So thank you. Just so that people know who you are. Really. That's it. Thank you very much. Oh, and next meeting is 20th of October.
Oh, the symposium.
Oh, and the symposium is.
Now, the symposium is going to be in 3 months' time, and it's going to be
New beginnings.
New beginnings, and it's going to be at the same. Well, we will be having a registered managers forum that will be here, will be in well, and we are looking at the CQC regulations, the infection prevention control standards, management and mental capacity. What is it called? In the right name for it going to be now. Liberty, protection, safeguards. Hopefully we'll have to talking about the new market strategies that everybody should be aware of. I worked out that when we've been so busy working behind the scenes, frontline and COVID, they're all behind the scenes getting these new things out for us. But so hopefully I think it can possibly
looking to the future. Brilliant. Right. On that note, watch this space and thank you very much.
Thank you.